Do you ever feel stuck doing the same data tasks over and over again? You're not alone. Many of us use Google Sheets every day, but we often miss its true potential for automation. What if we could stop wasting time on repetitive work and instead have Google Sheets and N8N handle it all for us? In this video, I'll show you how to turn those manual headaches into smooth, automated workflows, giving you back precious hours. Let's go. Okay, before we dive in, you need to know just two things. The first is that at the very end, I'm going to go over this example, which is integrating an AI agent with your Google Sheets, which basically makes it so that you can talk directly with your Google Sheets through Slack. And I'll leave all the reasoning up to your AI agent. So you can literally ask it questions about your data, like who you should focus on and things of that nature that will significantly reduce manual work that you need to complete on a day-to-day basis and save you a boatload of time. This is well worth the time that it takes to set up, and I'm going to go over this in detail at the very end after we cover all the nodes. The second thing that you need to know is that you can download this whole workflow for free. There's a link in the description that you can follow where you just go and you sign up. You create a free account at automationhackers.net and you will have access to every single workflow that I have created on this YouTube channel, including this. You can just download this and start playing with it yourself. Okay, so we're going to go through how to create a document, create a sheet, update a sheet name. We're going to go through appending data. We're going to go through updating data. We're going to go through every single one of these steps. We're going to create a document that's called Master Google Sheets. When you double click on the node, it'll bring up all the options that you have available. So we have our credentials here, and I'm not going to go through that in this video. I have another video on the channel that will walk you through how to do this. But this is basically how you connect to your own Google Drive or your own Google Sheets instance. So for the sake of this video, we're already connected. Then we're going to pick the resource document, and then we're going to do operation create. And you can either create or delete with this node. We're going to create, and then we're going to indicate what we want to call it. So we're going to call master Google Sheets. And then we're going to hit execute step. But before we do that, we'll come over to our drive and I'll show you that this document does not exist yet. So we see here, and we'll refresh it, that document doesn't exist here. The master Google Sheets is not here. As soon as we execute this step, we're going to get a response that says that it was created successfully. Now we'll go back to our Google Drive, we'll refresh, and we'll see now that the master Google Sheets document has been created. So if we double click into this, you see master Google Sheets, and then you see here at the bottom, you have sheet 1. That's the default naming. And so remember that, because we're going to go into the next step and show you how you can modify that when you create a document. So now we're going to exit out of this, and we're going to actually delete this master Google Sheets document, and we're going to now go on to the next step, which is create document and sheet. So you have the option of just creating the document and not specifying the sheet name, but you also have the option to specify the sheet name. So we're going to do that. We're going to come in, again, same thing, connected to the same account, resource document, create, and we're going to call it master Google Sheets. And this time we'll just call it 2 so that it's distinct. And we're going to have a title of leads. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to refresh again so you can see this isn't created yet. We'll execute this step, and then we show a successful creation, a response here. So we'll go back to our drive, we'll refresh, and then we'll see Master Google Sheets 2 is here. And when we click on it, we're going to see down here in the bottom that instead of the default sheet 1, we've now indicated that we wanted this to be called leads. So we can control that. Again, if we go back and we look at this node, we can see that we specified what we wanted the sheets to be named, and it was the leads. Now you can add other sheets, so if you want to create multiple sheets in one fell swoop, you could create multiple, but we'll just, for the sake of this one, we'll create one, and so that's how you create a document, and you specify what you want the sheet to be named, or you specify multiple sheets and what their respective names are. So moving on, we'll create a sheet in a document. So this is now after the document has been created, we can go into that document and add more sheets to it after it's been created. In this one, it was while it's being created. And in this one, it's kind of an edit of the document that already exists. So we're going to double click here. And this time we have the same things, same credentials, we're connected. The resource is sheet within document. So we can, again, we can create a document, but now what we want to do is create a sheet within a document. And in order to do that, we need to now access the document that we just barely created. So we're going to have a drop down, and now we'll see here, Master Google Sheets 2. So this is the document that we're going to specify. We select this one, and now we're going to create a title for the new sheet that we want to create in the existing document. And so we're just going to call that customers. Instead of leads, we'll call it customers. We'll hit execute step. So now that this was successfully created, we're going to go over to our Master Google Sheets 2 document and see that we've now added the customers sheet to that document. So click over here. Now you see at the bottom, now before it was just leads, and now we have customers as well. So this was successfully updated using NAN. So there are a lot of use cases for this, but I just wanted to show you these three. Many times you'll have the document already created, but these are options that you have in your tool belt in NAN. So now we'll get to creating data. So we'll go back again. You'll see that this is a completely empty sheet. We're on the lead sheet. It's completely empty. Now we're going to populate that sheet with data. So let's go through some of these nodes right here. So the edit fields node is where we're inputting the data that we want to populate the Google Sheets with. So when we execute this step, what's going to happen is we're going to create a data object inside of this JSON. And JSON can seem a little bit intimidating once you get the hang of it. It's actually pretty straightforward. It's either an array or an object. And in this case, with NAN, it's always an array of objects. And so we have data as one of the entries in our first object. And for the purposes of this video, we won't go into more detail than that. But you can see now that we have this array or this list of leads. And we have the lead name, the company, the email, the phone, the status, some of the fields that you would expect to see included with a lead. And each of these objects or entries follow the same exact structure. So all of these are going to have lead name, company, email, phone, and on and on. And these are called keys, but the value is just going to be different in each of these. So this one's lead name is Bob Johnson. This one's lead name is Charlie Brown. If you put it in a table, you can see it. It can be a little bit confusing to understand in this format, but I'll show you how we're going to translate that so that it's more usable for our use case. So now we have this data available to us in our output column. And in NAN, you either have inputs or outputs. Now that's different with the trigger nodes, but in every other node, you're going to have an input and an output. And the output from one node is the input to the following node. So we have this edit fields node that we just created this data with. And then we come over here to the next node to the right, which is split out. And you'll see on the input side, we have that exact same data object, that exact same JSON that was in the output of the edit fields node. And now we have access to it in this node. So it kind of runs like a river. Anything that we have here, and so on and so forth. So in the split out, we're going to take the data to split out. We're just going to grab this, put it right here. And what's going to happen is this node is going to take all of the entries in here, every list item in here, and it's going to split it out so that we have, instead of currently, we have one item. You see here when I move the mouse away, it says one item. And now when we run this split out node, it's going to have 20 items on this side. So we'll execute this step, and now you'll see that's confirmed 20 items, and you can see how this looks different. We've taken it from here and moved it out to this level of the JSON. So now we have 20 items that are all the lead name and the data for each of the leads. So now moving on to the next step. We've put this loop in place, and we don't necessarily need it for this particular use case because it's only 20 items. But there can be cases where you would have maybe hundreds of items or thousands of items, just more items, And when you don't put this loop in place, sometimes you can max out your API requests and you'll get an error because you're trying to hit that server too many times, and there's a limit for each API or there's a limit for most APIs that they give you in terms of the number of requests that you can make every second. So we're just going to demonstrate that. This loop over items node right here basically makes it possible for us to create this loop. So you'll notice that it has two outputs, done and loop. So basically, while it's not gone through all 20 of the items, it's going to go through this branch on the output side. So it's going to go and it's going to append a row, and then it's going to wait for half a second, and then it's going to loop back and it's going to go over the next item and it's going to append that to the row, and then it's going to wait and do this over and over until it's done it for every single one of the 20 items. So we can show how that works, and but first we need to set up this node correctly. So we have an append rows node, and again we're using the same credentials, and we're going to use a sheet within a document. We're going to update the sheet within the document, and we're going to append a row. We have a bunch of different options that we have here, and we'll go through these as the video continues. But we're going to do append row here, and now we need to select the document where the sheet lives that we want to update. So the document is just like the last one, master Google Sheets 2, and then the sheet is going to be leads. So now when we select those, it opens up a few more options. We have mapping column mode, and you can map each column manually, or you can map them automatically. And in one of the nodes that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, we'll show the difference between this. But for our cases, we're just going to map automatically here. And now this node, you'll notice that the error went away and we're ready to execute this. Now I'm going to press execute workflow right here, and this is going to go through and complete this whole loop and this whole workflow right here. And we're going to watch it in real time. So you'll see it, we'll see it working, and we'll see the result in the Google Sheets as we go along. So I'm going to press execute step here, and you're going to watch as these circles go. So right now it's appending a row, then it's going to wait. Now it's appending a row, and you can see now it's on 3. Now it's on 4. Now it's on 5. And we can see this happening in real time over here on our Google Sheet. So you can see these are being added in basically half-second intervals. There may be a little bit of a delay between the API, but we're waiting for a half second. So again, we'll go back and you can see this working. Okay, now it's 13, 14, 15. Now there are only 5 left, and then this workflow is going to be finished. So we'll go back to the workflow and watch what happens when it finishes. 20. Now you get a workflow executed successfully down here in the corner, and this is now finished. So you can see what happens in this loop and with this wait, that it does one at a time and spaces it out so that we don't hit those API errors. Because if we take out this loop over items, this is just going to go through as fast as NAN possibly can, and in some cases it will result in too many requests and our workflow will error. But now you can see that we mapped the columns automatically. So we have these column header titles, and you'll notice that those match. If we look at the split out, those match these. So that's where it got it. And in every single one of these, it knew how to map it because they're all the exact same. So that's updating our document in bulk. Next is we want to read the data from our sheet, and that's what this one does. So if we double click into this node, we have the same credentials, our resources sheet within document, again, because that's where the data lives, and then we're going to do get rows. Before we were doing append row, and now we're going to do get rows. And just like the last one that we set up, we have to select which document we want to target, which is Google Sheets 2, and then which actual sheet we want to target, which is leads. And for the purposes of this node, we're just going to execute this step, and you'll see that all of that data comes back from that Google Sheet now. So we'll have, and there's one different piece that we have now, which is row number, which is added, just an extra piece of information that Google Sheets sends over to us. And so now you can see that we've successfully retrieved all of the rows from the Google Sheet that we just created. So this is really valuable when maybe you need to update all the rows with a new column. You can do that when you retrieve all the rows. So that's an example of getting the rows from Google Sheet. Now we're going to come to append data. And appending is basically where we say, we're just going to add another value to our sheet at the very end. So we'll see how that works. And in order to do that, we're going to set a new row value because we want to make sure that we fill in every single one of these columns with the data that the Google Sheet expects. So we do that here by using a set or an edit fields node. And you can set as many fields as you'd like. And this is all the ones that we need for our Google Sheet right now. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you can see over here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have all the columns that we need. We execute this step, and we're going to see this object come out. So now that we have those row values set, we're going to open our append row. And you're going to see that, again, on the input side, we have the exact same data that we had on the output side for the last edit fields node. And we're going to use the same Google Sheets account, the credentials, sheet within document, and this time we're going to do append. We're going to do append row. And we need to do the same process. We need to select the document, so master Google Sheets 2, and then we need to select leads because that's where we're going to add it. And to start, we're going to do map each column automatically. And this is going to cause a little bit of an error in our Google Sheet, and we'll walk through why that's the case. So we're going to execute this step. Now we'll go over and look at the Google Sheet and see what happened. So you'll see that it added these columns over here on this side and then added the values in the right row, but not in the right columns. And that's because these keys don't match the actual keys that we have here. We changed them. So we're going to delete this. And we're going to show an example of mapping the columns manually. So we'll do this now. And so it went through and it fetched all of the different columns that we have. So we have lead name right here. So we'll just grab this from over here in this JSON and we're going to add it here, and you'll see that it is reading it correctly, Dana Harper. And then we're going to have company. We'll add that here. Then we have email here, and I'll go through and just fill out the rest of these. Okay, so I've gone ahead and filled in the rest of these, and you can see I followed the same exact process for the last few as I did for the first few, and now it's just pulling in the information from the data that we created. But this time, it knows that the column name is lead name, and we're setting the lead name column to this value instead of the lead underscore name with the lowercase letters. So now this is mapped correctly, and Google Sheets knows where to put this data. So we have all of these inputs correctly configured, and now we can execute this step. And we'll look here. The last one is Tony Stark. And when we press this button, when we execute this, it's going to add one just below Tony Stark. So let's execute step. Now we'll come in here and Dana Harper is going to be below Tony Stark. So here we are. Dana Harper is below Tony Stark. We added all the information that we expected to add, and it added it in the correct column. So if we go back and we consider the difference between mapping each column manually and mapping it automatically, the best practice here to save time is to make sure that these keys are named the same. So in this case, lead name we wouldn't want to do lead underscore name. What we'd want to do instead is do lead space name with capital letters at the front of each word. And then it would map automatically and the data would go in without us having to manually dictate which piece of data goes in which column. So that's just a little way that you can make it faster and more automated, is by making sure that these values are the same and match what's in your Google Sheets. So that's appending a row. Next, we're going to go to updating data. And so So now we need to go on and make the adjustments that we want to make to the data in this set fields node. So we're going to do this on Dana Harper. So if we look back at our sheet, we can see that Dana Harper was the last entry that we made. So now we're going to go in and we're going to make some adjustments to her data that we just added. So we have her email, her name, her company, phone. And before we move on to the next node, we need to execute this step so that we can see the data in the output. So there we go. We see the data in the output. Now we can move on to the next node, which is our update row node. And you'll see here now that in the input side, we have the data that we just output from the set fields node. And we want to update a row. And you're going to see a few options that come up that we haven't necessarily seen yet. So we're going to choose our master Google Sheets 2. We're going to choose leads, and then we're going to do map each column manually, because in this case, we don't have the correct column names still. Then you'll see this other option, which is column to match on. And this is a crucial piece to the update row because this allows NAN and Google Sheets to talk and to decide together which row they're going to update. So when you are updating a row, what you want to do is select a column value that is going to be unique. So this could be a phone number, it could be an email, it could be an ID, it could be a number of things, but you just want to make sure that this column value is unique. So we know that email is unique. No two emails are alike, so we're going to select email as the column to match on. And then you'll see when you update this, it also updates this value. And in this value, we need to place the exact email that we want NAN and Google Sheets to look for. And once they find it, then they'll go in and make the appropriate changes to the row where the email matches the email that we put here. So just as a quick demonstration, if you change this lead name, then this updates too. If you change it to company, then it will be company that is using the match. Again, we're going to use email. So we're going to go here and we're going to put the email in here. So now we're looking for dana.harper@lunarsys.com. So now that we have that email in there, we can go in and we can select which column values we want to change in that row. So let's say that we wanted to change her status to closed 1. Currently, if we go and look at it, her status is negotiation. So when we execute this step, it's going to tell us that that status was updated. So we'll come back here and you'll see that it is now closed 1. So this is a really valuable node that we can use because it allows us to go in and update based on a unique value and a really valuable piece that we can use in our automation. So that is the update row node. So now we're going to go on to append or update. And this is a really valuable node because it will do both. It will check if a unique value exists, and if it doesn't, then it will just add the row to the sheet or append the row to the sheet. And if the unique value does exist in the sheet, then it will just update the row. So it's a little bit more of a dynamic node that will allow us to not be so specific in what we want it to do. So we're going to go in here into our set rows value, and we're going to add a completely new value to our sheet in this case. We'll execute this step, and we're going to create a new lead. So this time it's Carlton Banks from Bel Air Capital, and he is interested in premium investment package and wants to discuss family trust integration. So now that we've executed that, we'll have access to that on the input side of this node. And now what we're going to do in the operation is we're going to select append or update row. Then in the document, we're going to select master Google Sheets 2, and then we're going to select leads. We're going to select leads here. And now, just like the update row, we need to do a column to match on. So this is now going to go through, if we select email, since email, we know email is unique. Again, this pops up, email using to match. Now we're going to grab this and we're going to say check if the carlton.b@example.com exists in any of the rows in the master Google Sheets 2 document in the leads sheet for the column of email. So basically what it's going to, now that we've said this, it's going to check all of these rows in this column and see if the carlton.b@example.com exists. And if it doesn't, then it's going to add a new row. If it does exist, then it's just going to update the value that we indicate we want it to update. So in this case, it's going to add it. So let's run this, and we're going to add in all the values that we want to include. So I'll do this, and then we'll execute. Okay, so now all of these have been input, and again, we're going to match on the email. So we'll execute this step. We don't have a Carlton Banks in here right now. We'll execute this, and it will add Carlton Banks to the very end. So see, now Carlton Banks has been added. Now let's say that we wanted to update Carlton Banks. We could use this same exact node, and it would be smart enough to know that we want that carlton.b at example.com does exist, and we just want to update, say, its status. So let's show that. So we're going to come down here to status, and we're just going to override it, and we're going to say closed one. And we're going to change this from expression to fixed. And then again, we'll come back and just verify. Okay, so right now it's contacted referral, and we're going to change it to closed one. So we'll execute this step, and it's not going to append a new row. It's going to update the row where it finds that carlton.b at example.com equals the email value. So we'll execute this step, and we'll come back here, and now we'll see that it's equal to closed one. So it does both. It will either append or update, which is really powerful. It just leaves you more dynamic in the workflow that you create and makes you a little bit more flexible. So that's a great node to use, is the append or update. Now we're going to go to search data. What this basically does is allows us to filter values and return only values based on a criteria that we set. So we'll open this, and the same thing as the rest of them. We're going to do get rows, and we're going to do master Google Sheets. We're going to do leads, and then we're going to add a filter. And we can select the column that we're interested in filtering on, and let's say that it is status. Now we'll come back to the sheet. Let's say that we only want to get the leads that have a status of new. We will do status, and then we're going to just type in new. Now you'll notice again that now we have, I believe it's 22 values, and this is not going to return all 22 values. It's only going to return the values that have a status of new. So we'll run this, and you'll see now that we have 7 items. So there are only 7 leads that have a status of new in this sheet, and it returned only the ones with that status. The other thing that we can do is we can combine filters as well, which is this would be an AND filter. So we'll come back here, and let's say that we're only interested in finding those who are new from an event, as new combined with the source of event. So we'll come and select source, and then we're going to type in event. Now we'll execute this step, and now there are only 2 items that are returned, which again is really valuable that you can filter in your workflow for the values that you're interested in bringing back instead of the whole entire sheet. So now we're going to go on to delete data. And we do the same steps, master Google Sheets 2, leads, and now we can just specify a row that we want to delete. So let's look at row 2. This is Alice Smith. We're going to just delete Alice Smith from our sheet. And so we're going to select the start row number is 2 and number of rows to delete is 1. So if we want to delete 2 and 3 at the same time, we could do start row number 2, and then we do number of rows to delete 2, and that would delete 2 and 3. But we're just going to delete the second row. So we'll execute again. We'll see Alice Smith is there. We'll execute the step. It'll come back as success, and now Alice Smith is gone. So we deleted that row. So that's how you use the delete row node. And now I want to get to the piece that puts this whole process on steroids, and that is putting an AI agent in the middle of our flow so that we can actually just talk with Slack, and it will do these things for us. So we need to do a few things to set up the AI agent. I've included a system message, so it basically tells the AI agent what we want it to do, and then a prompt or a user message that's going to come from Slack. So we have that AI agent set up. We have the ChatGPT 4.0 MIDI model set up. That's what the AI agent's going to use. We have our simple memory set up. Our context window length is set to 10, so that'll go back 10 messages to provide context. Then we're going to do get rows. We're going to select the master Google Sheets, and we're going to select leads as the sheet that we're interested in. And we're going to do the same thing with append and update. We're going to master sheets, master Google Sheets 2, leads. And then we've connected our email account here to this AI agent so that we can draft emails. So I'll show you how this is all going to work. So we're going to execute this workflow, which basically what happens here is that this node, this trigger node, is listening for a message to be sent to a certain channel in Slack. So now we're just going to come back here and we're going to do execute workflow. And this is going to allow NAN to start listening for messages that are coming through in that particular channel of Slack. So we'll execute the workflow. So now we're here in Slack and we're going to send our AI agent a message. We're going to say, can you give me the top most important leads I should work on right now? And what this is going to do now is it's going to send a message to that AI agent. It's going to use ChatGPT, the 4.0 mini model, to determine what we want. Then it's going to go to Google Sheets and it's going to put those leads through an algorithm to determine which is the most important lead for us to work on right now. So we'll send this message, and then it's going to come back with a lead that we should focus on. Here are the top leads you should focus on today. It gives us all the information that we put in our Google Sheet, and then it gave us an email draft that we can put in our Gmail account. All we'd have to do is go in and press send for each one of these. So let's tell it that we want it to draft those emails. So now we'll see that it came back and said, I've created the email drafts for each lead. Here they are. And it gives us a report. So now we can go back into our Gmail account and we can see that those drafts were made because we gave our AI agent the ability to draft up emails. We connected it to our Gmail account. So let's go see that. And now we're going to see that those drafts were made for us. So now we just need to come in and we need to just press send on these. It wrote up the email. Now there are some things that you need to fine tune, like it has your name. You need to specify what your name is. But all of these things it's drafted up for us. So it saves us a lot of time. That covers pretty much most of the nodes that you will use in as far as Google Sheets goes in NAN. Again, you can download this workflow, you can play with it yourself and test it with dummy data and see how the whole thing flows, see how the data flows, and then start building your own automations to use these as a reference. And again, that link is in the description and you can click on it. You just create a free account and you get all the workflows that have been used in any and all of the YouTube videos that are on my channel.